Vladimir Putin is preparing to attack the UK. The sobering truth is that our potential adversaries, Russia in the West and China in the East, are gearing up for wider conflict. That does not mean that conflict will happen or preparation makes it less likely, but we must urgently recognize the extent of the threat to the current order. Our world is becoming markedly more dangerous, and Britain is not ready. Our collective response over to much of the past 15 years was one of denial, oiled and encouraged by Russian money and influence in us. UK and EU. War in Ukraine open our eyes. Just this week, Cabinet Office Secretary Oliver Dowden gave an unprecedented warning of cyber threats to our national infrastructure, and Defense Secretary Ben Wallace has been consistently robust, but there is much more we can do. Some of our closest allies, such as Poland, are rearming on land at an unprecedented rate. Were the worst to happen, they will be ready to defend European soil, but the NATO alliance remains dangerously exposed at sea. Russia is probing for European vulnerabilities. Apart from food, the daily critical requirements of modern society are energy and communications. The underwater arteries of modern civilization are surprisingly few. For example, just 3 pipelines deliver 43% of our baseline gas supply. 5 interconnectors deliver electricity to and from the UK and Europe, and one more between Britain and Ireland. There are more communications cables, about 70 in all, but a relatively small number of deep-sea sabotage operations could bring our world to a halt without a shot being fired. We were assured that while for 2 decades, Putin has laid the groundwork for unconventional warfare. Current Russian military thinking sees conflict as combining military and non-military tools of state power, the unification of everything into a seamless whole to serve the Kremlin's aims. It is a form of total war, using everything from culture to cyber to conventional conflict. It reflects the belief that, according to the head of Russia's armed forces, the very rules of war have changed. It has been clear for years that both Russian official and illicit groups operate under the Kremlin's control. Russia has long used organized crime to do its dirty. My fear is that Putin is gauging options to attack the West, should he wish to escalate, without triggering a NATO military response. How would the UK or NATO respond to shadowy groups conducting cyber attacks across the UK or Europe that result in physical damage or destruction of fuel storage depots, or a series of unexplained glitches or failures on underwater cables? Would a military response be feasible? As Admiral Tony Radakin argued last year, we still don't know who sabotaged the Nord Stream pipeline. Could we really risk war on a suspicion of Putin knows this? As a result of the Telegraph story that broke the news of the underwater mapping, I have put down written parliamentary questions to ask about capabilities for underwater cable protection, when our undersea cable protection platform will be fully operational, and if and when a second will enter service. The truth is that maritime defense is an area where Britain can naturally lead, working especially with our Scandinavian, North Sea and Baltic allies in the 10-nation Joint Expeditionary Force. All these seafaring countries have a vested interest in preventing Russian ocean sabotage. But Britain's history is unique, and our naval experience involved. As the need is critical. We have failed to see the trend in Russia, but also in China, because for too long our leaders naively assumed the rulers of those countries shared our own outlook and assumptions. They do not. As we have seen with Putin, war is not only thinkable but necessary. Using his spy ships in the North and Baltic Seas, he is threatening to expand that conflict still further. We cannot afford to let him do so.